Okay, have you ever thought of buying a plot of land and building? You've seen all the TV programs and all the, amazing homes that you can build from scratch. But how about doing it in Spain on the Costa del Sol? So we're here today to talk about plot and build. Not the most kind of exciting of topics.
Well, those shows, like you say, make it look really cool and easy.
Yeah, you watch these Sarah Beanie and was it George Clark Amazing Homes, and you think, wow, if only I could do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that everyone would kind of like to try.
Yeah.
I bought a plot once and I didn't design it, but somebody designed a villa for me in El Madrigal, and we were just about to press go, and then the big recession came in 2008. So thankfully we didn't bother.
Oh, okay.
Why do you think people are attracted to the idea? Is it financially, or is it just to have something that is perfect for them?
Well, I think the key word is they're very brave, to be honest, because it's so important, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, but it's my opinion. It's so important that you can be here. And if you can't be here during the process, have somebody that is honestly your right hand and trustworthy. Because I've seen so many mistakes of putting it in the hands of non-professionals, which turns in a beautiful experience that it can be, into the worst drastic experience that someone has ever gone through, which creates a bad name to the area because they've suffered that. And that's the key thing, is look for professionals, patience, and trust the right people. And if you can't be here on top of it, then definitely ask for help for somebody that can be a project manager. A good project manager is just key in this.
I think the really important relationship is between the client and the architect, because that's where the dreams become reality. That's where having a good architect, and there's plenty on this coast who are amazing. Some are better at more contemporary style, some are better at the sort of rustic stuff. And they're all at slightly different price levels. But ask us and we'll point you in the right direction. But that relationship is super important, because you've got to be able to explain your vision, and they've got to be able to translate that onto paper in terms of renders and stuff to show you as to how it could look. And then obviously putting that part into reality in terms of bricks and mortar and
licenses. A lot of people forget about the bureaucracy. There's obviously always, in any country, I think. It's not only
absolutely.
We're here in the south of Spain. It happens everywhere. But you have to be prepared for that, and you have to get the right plot. Obviously, there's plenty of locations to do this. And plenty of architects. And plenty of professionals in the trade.
It's like anything, buying a property here, whether it's a plot and build or whether it's an apartment or a villa, you have got to trust the experts, and you've got to find the experts first of all. And like you said, whether it's a lawyer or whether in this case it's an architect or a builder or a project manager, you've just got to surround yourself with the right people. And that might mean you spend a little more money, but to have that expertise here, based here, and supervising everything is super important. Because most of these plot and builds, you're talking about a significant amount of money. You're talking about probably investment of a 7-figure sum. So don't skimp on a few €100 here and there. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
And then the timing, like I was saying, have patience. You have to be prepared for surprises, because they will pop up. And I'll give you an example. Neighbor semi-detached villa is refurbishing. They don't live here. They live away, and they just found out that they cannot continue building in the month of August because the law doesn't. The community exactly. So they've completely stopped, and it's kind of frustrating because noise does affect the people that live around. So we wanted them to just finish it, but now we'll have to go to September, and then they'll continue. So you have to be prepared for these sort of not surprises. They're just things that happen.
That comes into research. We deal primarily with, I think, 4 municipalities here. So Marbella, Mijas, Estepona, and Benavis. And Marbella has had a lot of problems in the last 20 years, really, in terms of getting planning applications through, because there was a lot of dodgy dealing in the town hall, basically. There you go.
That's what it was.
So
and the urban planning law.
They're now super kind of cautious about what they allow and what they don't allow. So Marbella is almost a bit off limits, really, for anyone wanting to do this.
Yeah.
Probably the easiest town hall to work with is Ben Abbey's.
Definitely.
Because they're very efficient. They normally, once you submit your initial project, normally within 3 months, your spade's in the ground and off you go. Yeah. So that's probably the most, certainly the easiest location, I think, to work with and get the approval and get motoring. And so architects and builders love working with Ben Abbey's because they understand that they're quick, they're not having to wait for months. Marbella can be a bit of a nightmare. So if somebody offers you a plot in any of the Marbella districts, just be careful.
Yeah.
Don't commit to it until you've done your research and you know firstly what's allowed, and then secondly how long it's going to take you. The first step on this journey is identifying suitable plot, isn't it?
Exactly. The location.
Yeah. And sometimes, because obviously most of the development has started beachside and gone into the hills, some of the most financially attractive plots now are further back.
Yeah.
And from there, you normally get amazing views, but obviously you're going to be limited in terms of access to amenities because those are the areas on the coastal side. But once you've found a plot, I think it's fair to say that you then need to do your research and find out which municipality governs it. So if it's in, for instance, Ben Abbey's, you need to find out what the build allowance is on that plot.
Exactly.
Is it for urban use or for rustic use? Because if it's for rustic use, you've got a problem. Chances are you'll probably be able to construct a shed, and that's about it. So it needs to be classified as urban use, and you need to find out what the coefficient is that you can build. So for instance, in Montemayor, you can buy a big plot, 3,000-4,000 square meters, and you can build normally about 12%. And that will be constructed areas. So that will be, this is where it gets a little bit technical, but that will be, it won't include things like open terraces or even basements. So there's a little bit more room there, but normally in terms of declared.
But that's why you need a larger plot if you're going to invest in that area. Yeah. Whereas here in the Guadalmina area and most Andalusia as well, you get up to a 0.3, 30%.
So 30%.
So on 1,000 square meters, that's okay.
That's big. So every plot probably has a slightly different coefficient, and you need to check that out.
What you need to check. And it's also true that you have to make sure that you see the title deed, because it's not always the same as what appears on internet, which is accessible to the public, which is the cadastral reference number. And that does not always equal what's on the title deed. So you have to triple check this, honestly, because if not, you run into headaches, and you want to avoid that. I go back to first try and run. The key thing is to avoid running into headaches. And if you see a headache coming, go somewhere else and check it.
I've got a 50 square meter discrepancy in the plot size of mine. The lawyers have said that's okay, but if it was 500 square meters, that's exactly right. That's a big problem.
Yeah, because you're purchasing what you see, and you also have to read the small print.
And very few people mark out the boundaries here.
That's exactly right.
So you think you're buying that.
You run into problems. It happens.
One of the first things I do with any plot vendor is I say, can you just invest like €100 and just get a topographer to stick some sticks in the ground, so when I'm showing a client, I can say, that's your boundary, these are your boundaries.
That's the way to do it.
And it's easy. And
absolutely. Exactly.
The other thing that I would invest in before purchasing a plot is a topographical report.
Yes.
Because you might look at a plot and go, this is amazing, this looks perfect for what I want. But actually, a topographical report will give you all the undulations, and it means that an architect will be able to look at that and actually plan your house. Without even going to the plot. So it doesn't answer all the questions, but it's certainly one of the things.
It's a smart investment.
Yeah, and it's a couple of €100, something like that.
Exactly.
And very often, owners or developers have it anyway.
Yeah.
People say that you should do a geotechnical survey. I'm not sure if I would do that prior to purchase, unless I had some doubts about the land itself, about what was underneath, because here you have a lot of rock, which is great to build on but hard to excavate. So
but the other thing here in Marbella is you run into Roman ruins.
Oh, don't say that.
Yeah.
We had an office in York once, and I won't tell you what we found.
This is why you have to hire prior to making a commitment, is to see what's going on there. That's strong.
That rarely happens. The one thing you do have to be aware of when you're doing this, buying a plot and building for yourself, is that there are different taxes involved, depending, not on your circumstances, but depending on the circumstances of who's selling it, which is a bit bizarre. So if you're buying a plot that belongs to a private individual, say me, you would pay transfer tax on that plot of 7%. If I have that plot but it's in a company name and I'm selling it to you, you actually end up paying IVA, which is like
21%.
UK VAT of 21%. So there's a 14% difference here, and it's purely based on who is selling it. So that's why a lot of privately owned plots are the ones that are more attractive financially. And then there's a second stage to it. So that's who you're buying it from, but the second stage is what you're doing with it. So if you are a developer and you're building purely as an investment and to sell on, then obviously you can write off the EVA.
Exactly.
So you can write off that 21% EVA on the plot, and also the 10% EVA on the build costs during construction. You can write that off, but it does have to be done for investment. So you can't suddenly build this house and then go and live in it, because the taxman will be all over you, and the taxman has 4 years from the date of the last invoice that you pay to chase you for that EVA. So taxman will come knocking on the door saying, Mr. Woolley, you bought this plot and developed this through a company, and now you're living here yourself. Hang on a minute, you owe us some tax. So just be very careful. Get specialist tax advice. I know people who've kind of got away with it and stuff like that, and there's ways and means, but
the lawyers obviously.
So the lawyers will advise. If it's something for your personal use, strictly speaking, you should do it through a personal name. And you can do it through a company, but in terms of taxes, it's far easier to do it through personal name. And then if you do inhabit the property yourself and then you come to sell it on, if it's done in a personal name and then you're moving on to something else, it means that your capital gains tax liability will be less as well. So there's quite a few little things that you just need to be aware of as to how to structure the whole exercise. That's fair enough, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then I can't insist enough on finding the proper construction company and make sure they are a legitimate construction company. They've been in business and know what they're doing here. They have the employees on board that are actually paid a salary with contracts, because that's another issue that you have to kind of avoid here, because they might just disappear on you in the middle of the construction.
And again, a good architect.
It's happened. So.
Again, a reputable architect. I mean, there's 4 or 5 that I can just name now. A reputable architect will have the ideal builder and a long-standing relationship with that building company for your project. So again, depending on where it is, the type of structure that it'll be, they will know the perfect builders for you, and they will put it out to tender, maybe to 2 or 3 companies, and then you'll have a choice of who you use based on their recommendations. That's the way I would do it. I wouldn't do it on my own.
No.
Absolutely
Definitely.
no way. But I think if you get it right, if you build something that's right for you, but also with a commercial angle as well, in terms of selling on in the future, you can make money. You can make a significant amount of money. That's what developers do around the world. Paul's right, you need a little bit of patience and you need to be on top of the detail. But again, if you hire the right people, that can be done on your behalf. But you can certainly make money. For instance, Monte Mayor, which is where I'm buying at the moment, you can buy a plot there for 250,000 euros, retaining walls of 120,000, and you could build a beautiful 4-bed house of 300 square meters for maybe 600,000. So for less than $1 million, you've got something. If it's done right and the right specifications, you've got something that should be worth 400,000 or 500,000 euros more if you come to sell that property after completion.
In 2 years' time.
Yeah, and that's a significant investment. You know?
But it is happening. Aren't you amazed at the construction that's going on? And also old villas that are being completely demolished and new structures coming up.
And sometimes to get what you want, you have to do it yourself. The amount of times I've shown clients 20, 30 villas, and each one there's something not quite right. And some clients can overcome that and change things or live with it. Some clients can't. Some clients, particularly if they've got a big budget, think, do you know what? I'm just going to have to do this.
I know what I want. I've been designing it in my head for years.
And I always say, well, do you know what? The option for you may be to build it yourself. No one's ever lost money doing it. But it's just going through that process. And it can be a rewarding experience, but it's just, I know we've said it so many times, getting the right people on board.
Absolutely.
Doing all the basics right.
Having some patience.
But I think it's really important that, you know, it's the heart and the head kind of thing, because you might be building it for yourself, but please don't ever forget about worst case scenario. So if you do need to sell the property or to rent it out, it has to be workable for other people. I went to a house the other day up in Benavis.
Was that bad?
And it looked, on paper it looked great. There was no pool, but I kind of was, Anyway, we looked around it.
Yeah.
And my question at the end of the tour was, where's the rest of the house? Because what these people have done is they built it purely for themselves. So they built a 2-bed villa, okay? Beautiful, amazing views, but 2-bed, parking for 1 car, because they've done it on the basis that it's for them.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's only the 2 of them. Maybe a guest now and again.
We don't want to swim.
And they don't want to swim
No.
because it's only for like a winter holiday home. And I was like, are you kidding?
Oh, well, yeah.
And that house is going to be really, really difficult to sell because somebody's going to come along and just go, this is such a headache.
Yeah.
I might as well do it myself or look at something else.
And you probably can't even add on to this house because you've
on.
already
Yeah.
gone through the
It's basically
construction
an apartment
size.
on a hillside.
Wow.
And they want 850,000 for it. And I'm like, hang on a minute, for 950 I could build a 4-bed villa.
Yeah, that's it.
So just be careful that you don't become too self-indulgent. I've seen a lot of people do it in terms of wacky designs, and it might be amazing to you, but to the general public it might look a monstrosity. So just get some advice.
Yeah, I think it's also for a lot of people, including my wife and I, that we have that dream, that we're always like on weekends we're saying, oh, we want our house to be like this, and you start putting down on paper. We become architects. But then obviously
it's great fun, isn't it?
It's great fun.
Yeah,
and then so that is a dream, and you can make that dream come true, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, we do have the professionals, I want to insist.
Yeah.
We do have the professionals down here. We can help you with that.
What we do really is anyone who does this and has been introduced by us, we kind of sit there just monitoring everything and making sure that everyone's doing their jobs. And if you need someone to project manage it, we can help and step in. But very often that's included as part of the kind of build contract with the builders and the architects. But yeah, meet the right people, get some advice, get the good and the bad as well. Don't listen to everyone selling you a dream, because there are things that you need to be aware of, like we've pointed out, and then make a decision and then do it properly. And honestly, it can be incredibly rewarding. You can make a lot of money, but just do it properly.
And make it fun.
Yeah.
Make it fun.
Yeah.
Look at it as that. Yeah. So that way you'll bring that level of stress.
Exactly. Exactly. Good point.